Welcome to a team selection video for Matchday 2. Now, before I go into the kind of Limitless and Wildcard plans for Matchday 2 and beyond, I'm going to be doing a recap of Matchday 1, how it's been going so far. We still have plenty of games to go, and that of course can change the complexion of the week, but it started off very strongly and it has kind of tailed off as we've gone across the week. But very solid start with the Italian players, a triple up, Berardi with the assist, Insigne with a late goal before being substituted, and Donnarumma getting an assist. And then other assets such as Immobile, Spinazzola, they've been excellent as well. So a lot of value has been shown so far in the Italy assets. And to be honest, yeah, they are one of the kind of strongest teams outside of the favourites, and they can definitely go, I'd say, to the semi-finals or even the final, but we'll have to wait and see. Turkey weren't as good as we anticipated, and Switzerland could be a tough test, but you would still expect Italy to do the business. So if you do have triple Italy, it's actually not too bad having all of those assets. Then it gets a bit, very disappointing when we go to the defence. Wijndal didn't even play, despite featuring in all the friendlies and the qualifiers over the years. And Netherlands actually made a lot of changes at the back with some assets that we never really considered in the past. And then we have Denayer, another one who played in the qualifiers, he played also in the friendlies, and he just didn't play. Boyata played, I think just because of the kind of opponents that they were up against. But yeah, it's very disappointing that Denayer didn't start, didn't get those points, because it could have been a clean sheet and looking much better there. And it kind of poses some doubts about these 4.5 million assets. And then double Denmark defense. I mean, the whole situation was a bit, it's a very strange one, and it's very good that Eriksen has recovered, and hopefully he continues to do so. And I do think that had an impact on the Denmark defense. I think that it was probably very likely that they could have kept the clean sheet, but some things are bigger than fantasy football and also football in general. But yeah, Finland, I mean, very good for them to get their to get a 1-0 win, where in a group where everyone expected them to be bottom, so maybe they can finish second or third and progress to the next round. Pau Torres hasn't featured yet, same with Ferran Torres, and I've still got Jota and Ronaldo to come off the bench, and they probably would come on for Wijndal and Denayer unless some more kind of upsets happen with both Torreses today. Depay blanked, very disappointing as well. The Netherlands scored 3 goals, and Depay played pretty well. He completed a lot of dribbles, but just no points in the end to show for it, and he tends to be the talisman for the Netherlands, so it was very disappointing for him not to return. However, on a bit of a brighter note, I did change the captaincy. I was a bit bold in a way, because I had it on Insigne on the first day, and I decided to change it to Lukaku on the second day. And the kind of logic behind that was, well, I've got 8 points and it's a good total, but maybe it could be improved. I've got Lukaku, I've got Depay, I've got Ferran Torres and Ronaldo and more that I can captain on different days. So I've got plenty of opportunities to beat 8 points. And I got 10 points from Lukaku, 2 goals, and he's one of my tips to finish Golden Boot as the Golden Boot winner. So very happy with him, and I think 10 points is, I'm pretty happy with that. I'll stick with it. I didn't change it to Depay, and I'm happy I didn't do that. And I probably won't be changing it to Ferran Torres or Ronaldo. And even though they can beat 10 points, I'm happy with that. And I'll just take it, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, still got a few players to go, but very disappointing. I'm on 46 points at the moment, despite such a solid start. And hopefully things do get better. But I think it's very important sometimes to start strongly, and if you don't, to react accordingly, and to also stick to your plan. If you've had a plan from before, to not be too kind of dismayed by anything that's gone wrong. For example, my team, the defense has been awful so far, and hopefully things can improve. This is how my team is looking like at the moment, without a wild card, without a limitless in Matchday 2, and across the board, a lot of tough fixtures. So even the Italian players, they are facing Switzerland, who arguably are the second best team in the group. So that's going to be tough. Then you look at the Belgian players, they're facing Denmark, who, it's not a particularly easy fixture, but I think I wouldn't be too worried about that. But then you look at Denayer not starting, it could be a common theme throughout the tournament, and that's just not something you want to have. The reason why I got Denayer is because he was nailed, but apparently not. Then you have Wijndal, might not even play against Austria. Depay I wouldn't mind having for Austria, but so far really we're looking at 2 players that I'd want to keep. And to be honest, I'm happy with the triple Italy, despite the tough fixture on paper. I wouldn't mind that. So 5 players. Then you have Ronaldo against Germany. I mean, never write off Ronaldo. Having said that, his record against these sorts of World Cup winning nations and top nations isn't particularly impressive. I don't think he's actually scored against Germany before. And I remember the last time they faced in an international tournament, Germany won 4-0 in the 2014 World Cup. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, and you could argue that Portugal are better than Germany right now, but it's not ideal. And then having Jota as well, double Portugal attack against Germany. But then again, you look at the German defence, they're not that impressive. They don't keep too many clean sheets, and actually over the last 10-20 games that they've had, not many at all, not many clean sheets. So maybe it's not too bad, but a double Portugal attack, you could obviously have better options in this match day. And then you look at the double Denmark defence against Belgium, that's just literally a no. I'm convinced Belgium will score at least 2 goals. And then you look at Hradecky against Russia. I mean, he can pull off some more heroics. I mean, I didn't even mention him actually in my Matchday 1 kind of recap. 13 points. I kept it on Donnarumma. I was happy with the 6 points, but he saved the penalty from Højbjerg, kept the clean sheet. I mean, fair play to anyone who did have him. And obviously, I am kind of a bit, I want to say upset, but I'm a bit disappointed that obviously I didn't get those points, but it is what it is. At least I got something from Donnarumma. But yeah, against Russia, Hradecky, I wouldn't expect a clean sheet, but then again, no one expected it against Denmark, and they got it. So fair play to Finland and Hradecky. And then Pau Torres and Ferran Torres, I'm not too worried about them. It is Poland. It's going to be a difficult game. Might be a bit cagey, but there's a potential for a clean sheet and maybe an attack and return from Ferran Torres. And then Nigo, he's just bench fodder, and he's facing France, so really you're just expecting nothing there. So on the whole, you look at my team in Matchday 2, and it's a mess. And the kind of plan was always to play a chip in Matchday 2, and I was leaning towards the Limitless beforehand, and I still am, but having said that, maybe there is potential to use it in Matchday 3. But what I'm going to do now is show you my Limitless draft at the moment, and this is something I've actually made before a ball was even kicked in the tournament. I made a draft for Matchday 2 to kind of just reevaluate and assess when is the best time to play my chips, Matchday 2 or Matchday 3. And of course, it's different for everyone. Also depends on how you set up for Matchday 1. And I'm very happy with this Matchday 2 team. I'm more happy than I was maybe a few days ago, and I'm really happy with some of these players. Obviously, you look at Donnarumma and Insigne, they'd be staying in from my normal team, but I'm not too worried about that. And even then, there are alternatives to all of these kind of players that I'm mentioning, but I think on paper, the 2 best keepers for Matchday 2 are Donnarumma and Lloris, and so having the ability to have both of them because of no budget restrictions with the Limitless chip, I think is a fantastic advantage. So Donnarumma and Lloris, I think, is who I'd go for in terms of the goalkeepers. In the defence, I think I would want to go double France defence rather than double France attack, which is a bit risky because with France, they have so many avenues in terms of goals from their midfield, from their wingers, from their strikers. Maybe it's a good thing to go with double attack against Hungary. But having said that, I look at it and I want Lukaku and I want Harry Kane and I want different assets from the midfield and the attack. So, and then when I look at the defence, it's not as, I'd have to say there's not as many options that I'm really kind of keen on. So I'd rather have a double French defence at this moment in time. I could change my mind. So I think Pavard and Lloris, I think I'd be very happy with in terms of the double French defence. Spinazzola and Donnarumma, again, another double up in defence. It's very risky. It proved costly for me with Denmark in Matchday 1, but Italy, they've kept 8 consecutive clean sheets, I believe. This could be their 9th. And you wouldn't be too surprised. Spinazzola's got so much attacking potential. He got that assist against Turkey, and he was man of the match. He was the best player, well deserved. Thomas Meunier, I mean, very lucky for anyone who owns him, but also fair play. You know, sometimes you need luck like this. Timothy Castagne came off in the 27th minute with an injury. Meunier comes in just before the 30th minute mark so he can get the clean sheet points. He got that, he got an assist, he scored a goal. I mean, what a performance by Meunier. He's the highest scoring player so far in Euro Fantasy Football. And yeah, he's definitely someone that if he can just stay fit and play every single game, he's going to be a fantastic option and probably the best at 5.5 million. I've always said that his attacking potential is always there, but the fact that Castagne's there makes things difficult when looking at Thomas Meunier. And yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Castagne's injury, Meunier would have got no points really, you would have thought, or maybe he would have come on later on in the game. So yeah, things can happen, and That's why it's always important to reassess and not always just be rigid in your beliefs and be open-minded with new assets as they come along. And Meunier, definitely someone that on a Matchday 2 Limitless draft you'd want to have, and even on a wildcard potentially. Now Dumfries, I'll be honest, once again I have to stress this, I don't like Netherlands' defence, and it was proven by the fact they conceded 2 goals in the space of a minute or two against Ukraine after being 2-0 up. They did get a late winner, and it was from Dumfries, and he had 3 big chances throughout the game. He missed the first 2, but finally, third time lucky, he slotted it home. The keeper should have done better, but Dumfries got the goal, and he's got so much attacking potential. Even in the qualifiers and the friendlies, he was getting assists. He's always bombing forward. So from the defence on a Limitless, if you were to go for one, I think Dumfries is the answer. But once again, there's the caveat of Netherlands being very poor defensively, and you'd want to have maybe a Wijnaldum, a Depay, maybe a Weghorst, these sorts of assets rather than the defence. But if you were to pick one, I think Dumfries is it. And then my final defender in this current draft is Zinchenko. And once again, not really too impressed with the Ukrainian defence, but they are facing North Macedonia, who are probably one of the worst sides in the tournament. But you never know. I mean, once again, just like with Dumfries, I have something in the back of my mind that tells me there is the possibility of Ukraine conceding. So that's why I'm not too sure about Zinchenko and Dumfries. I might even look elsewhere, and I'll talk about kind of alternatives later on to my Limitless draft. But this is what I have so far. With my midfield, I think Insigne, very happy with him. He looked very dangerous, looked very lively, very involved. But he did miss a few chances. He did kind of rush some shots towards the beginning of the game, but he paid off the faith that a lot of managers put in him, and got that late goal just before he got substituted. Very lucky there for anyone who owned him, including myself. But he got the points, and Italy looked very strong. Will they always score 3 goals? I'm not so sure. That was the first time they've ever scored 3 goals in a Euros tournament, so just bear that in mind. But they can definitely do that against Switzerland and Wales. We'll see what happens there. As for the rest of the midfield, Raheem Sterling, I mean, very good performance against Croatia. Took his goal nicely. Great assist by Calvin Phillips, who in my opinion was man of the match. But Sterling looked very good. That was back to his best, and we haven't really seen that too much throughout the season. But Sterling for England, he's got a great record. I think he's got now 13 goals in his last 16 appearances, something like that, or 17 now. So Sterling is looking pretty lively. Looks like an asset, someone we can consider around 9.5 million, which is a bit of a tricky price. But I think Sterling could be a very good option on the Limitless. Am I convinced he's going to score in every single game? I'm not so sure. And it's been a while since he scored in back-to-back games, so we'll see there. He is someone that, once again, just like with Zinchenko and Dumfries, could not even feature in my final Limitless team. Gareth Bale's an interesting one, and he did blank in the first game against Switzerland, but I think he can do something against Turkey. I wouldn't want him against the game against Italy, but against Turkey, I think Bale could do the business, and he's a bit of an explosive asset. You either kind of get a double-digit haul from him or nothing, so we'll wait and see. Bale's a bit of an interesting wildcard pick, really. And Wijnaldum, I mean, he got the goal. I was talking about the kind of impact that Frank de Boer's 5-3-2 system, or 3-5-2, depending on how you look at it, has on the Netherlands and also on Wijnaldum as an asset. And to be honest, he was still getting in great positions. He got the goal, and he's someone that is still, I think he's worth consideration. He's a completely different asset in this as opposed to FPL or even UCL Fantasy, where he's playing a much more defensive role for Liverpool and probably in the future with PSG. But Wijnaldum, he's someone to look for, and if you're not going to have the pie up front, I think Wijnaldum's good cover in the midfield, so he's someone I'd be looking at. Yarmolenko scored probably the best goal of the tournament. What a goal that was, and I think he's a great asset sometimes, and he can even score from outside the box. That will get you an extra point, of course. So Yarmolenko is definitely someone I would consider. From the Ukraine, or should I say Ukraine, not the Ukraine, Yaremchuk, Yarmolenko, and Zinchenko. Those are the 3 you want to target, and also Malinovsky. Those 4 are fantastic options, whether you're on a Limitless or a wildcard. And one thing I will say is that obviously we kind of get carried away when we look at the Limitless chip, and we just want to automatically go for the most expensive options. Sometimes the cheaper options will provide better value, and even if you have the ability to spend how much you want, it doesn't matter because the cheaper assets can get more points. So if you have a feeling about Yaremchuk at 7 million, go for him. Don't be put off. So that's just something I would advise to all of you, and it's something that I might take on board with my own team and going for some cheaper options, maybe even a Yaremchuk, for example, in the attack. But speaking of the forwards, Harry Kane is in there. He did blank, and I know a lot of people were criticising his performance, but very pivotal in the first goal with his run that dragged the defender away, which gave Sterling some space. Yeah, he didn't play particularly well, but then again, I think he had to drop too deep throughout the whole game to really get onto the ball. He wasn't getting service, and this could happen with Harry Kane, and that's why I did end up not going for him against Croatia. I thought it'd be a bit of a tight game, and there might be a different goal scorer. I wasn't particularly expecting Sterling to start or score himself, but I wasn't so sure about Harry Kane delivering the goods. But in matchday 2 against Scotland, I think it's a good opportunity, and matchday 3 as well. So I think with Harry Kane, I think he can, I wouldn't say stat pad, but he can get a few goals throughout these next 2 games and put himself in good stead for the Golden Boot, which I'm not so sure if he's going to win, but he's going to be a contender for sure, despite his blank in the first game week, and he's still someone worth considering. Lukaku, to be honest, I think he's just a bit of a no-brainer throughout the tournament. I think on the international stage anyway, he's one of the best strikers in the whole world, and he was fantastic for Inter Milan as well. He deserves a lot more respect, and what a performance in the first game. And even without Kevin De Bruyne and Witsel and all these sorts of players who are very important in the midfield, I still think Lukaku can get plenty of chances, and if he does, you can just tell he's going to score plenty of goals. So Lukaku's a no-brainer. Denmark aren't an easy team, but Lukaku is just a different animal, and he's a fantastic player, and he's improved a lot on his weaknesses over the years, so fair play to him. Really like him as a player. Kylian Mbappe, I think him, Griezmann, those are the sorts of players you want to be targeting for this fixture. Benzema, if he's fit, we'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow, but Kylian Mbappe, very happy with him. I think, it's going to be a bit difficult kind of nailing who is going to be the one who's going to get the most points from the French attack, but Mbappe is always going to be a shout. And that hungry fixture, you want to target it. I think you want to have triple France for that. Obviously, an upset can happen in any game, including this one, but ideally you'd want to have triple French players, whether it's a double up in attack or in the defence. Now, in terms of kind of other options, I think you have to look at the fixtures. So you look at matchday 2, where can I get points? So before matchday 1, a lot of people would have said Russia versus Finland, and I completely agree. But, Finland, they showed that they're resilient. They can hold on to a win or to a draw and keep it tight at the back at times. So I know Denmark dominated the game. They had a lot of shots, and Finland, obviously, they can't sustain that, conceding so many shots and keeping clean sheets. But I think we have to look at that game differently. And Russia, they're a decent attacking unit, but maybe it's not going to be so simple, and it's not like, we can just go for Zuba and all these sorts of players like Golovin or Golovkin. Maybe I'm getting confused with boxing here, but yeah, I think Russia have some good assets, but I'm not so sure if I would target that fixture, especially on a Limitless, for example. When you look at Turkey versus Wales, I think Gareth Bale is probably the standout, and I wouldn't want to go for a defender, and I probably wouldn't go for anyone else. Maybe an Aaron Ramsey, who had a great record in 2016. I'm not so sure if he's going to do that this year. And then with Turkey, I think Burak Yilmaz is still a good option, Yashitsi, but when you're on a Limitless, you want to be a bit more ambitious, I think, and this is a bit of a tight game. I'm not so sure which way to call it. Italy versus Switzerland, I think the assets I already mentioned. Immobile, although the problem with him is that he takes up one of those free precious striker spots. Spinazzola, Donnarumma, Insigne, Berardi if you're on a wild card. And there's a lot of options from Italy, to be honest. So those are the ones I'd be targeting. From Ukraine, not the Ukraine, I'd be looking at Yaremchuk, Malyanovsky, Sinchenko, and Yarmolenko. I think those 4 are the ones you want to have, and that's pretty much it. Ukraine, once again, I'm not so sure about a clean sheet, but Sinchenko has plenty of attacking potential, playing out of position, so that's why I would recommend him. Denmark versus Belgium, I would just be going for the Belgium options. If Hazard is fit, go for him, Eden Hazard. De Bruyne, I'm not so sure if he's going to make it yet. He might be rested or kind of saved for when he's fully fit in matchday 3 or beyond that. Lukaku's just an obvious one. Thomas Meunier is a standout, and I think he should play. After that performance, he definitely deserves to. So those are the sorts of options I'd be looking at there. From the Netherlands, yeah, I'd be looking at Wijnaldum, Depay, and if you're looking for cheaper options, maybe a Weghorst, and if you have the money, Dumfries, I think from the defence is the standout, and he should be playing. And obviously now it looks like Stecklenburg is going to be the starting keeper. If you want a 4.5 million one, I think he's the one to go for. I wouldn't completely discount Austria, though. They had a very good performance. They got their first ever win at the Euros against North Macedonia with a 3-1 win. So, you know, they have some assets that could cause some problems, like Arnautovic, Alaba, but ultimately, I do think I would favour the Netherlands in that game. And then Sweden versus Slovakia, that is a game I would be targeting. I'd be looking at one of their defenders like Augustinsson. I'd be looking at a midfielder like Forsberg, and maybe a striker like Isaac. So those are the sorts of options I'd be looking at. Sweden, in a game week like this, where they have a fixture like Slovakia, that could be where you gain a lot of rank, especially over your, you know, competitors in your mini leagues or whatever. But I think Sweden is definitely the one to go for in terms of the kind of overlooked assets, because yeah, Sweden in general, you don't want to have their assets for the whole tournament, but for this game, I think they can do the business. Croatia versus Czech Republic, maybe you could go for their keeper. You could maybe go for one of their strikers, but ultimately with Croatia, yeah, they weren't particularly impressive against England, I'll be honest, but I think Croatia, you could maybe go for a double up there. I wouldn't go for someone like Modric, who could maybe score a long shot here and there, but ultimately you want to have the more advanced options, or if not, the defenders or goalkeepers. So with Croatia, I would also not overlook them, but don't just go for the big names like Modric. Try to go for those who are in the advanced positions or who are defenders and can get you clean sheet points. England versus Scotland, to be honest, and I'm going to be showing this now with my wildcard team very shortly, what I would wildcard to if I was to use the chip in Matchday 2. I'd look at Tyrone Mings, you know, at 4.5 million starting for England, fantastic option, and he could be a great replacement for Denier, for example, or Veindel. So just take that into account. Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, they're good options. Phil Foden at 8 million looked very lively, almost opened the scoring early on in the game. And yeah, other than that, you could maybe just go for someone who's nailed, like Stones, like perhaps Walker. Trippier at 5 million if he continues to start. On set pieces, he's a fantastic option, but I'm not so sure, because it could be Chilwell, it could be Luke Shaw starting in that left back spot next time. It could be Reece James or Kyle Walker at right back. So Trippier has a lot of competition. Of course, he's got the experience. Southgate does trust him, but is he going to start every game? I'm not so sure. But those are the options I'd be looking at. And then Hungary versus France. I mean, there's so many options in this game, and I wouldn't be looking at Hungary. They could cause an upset, but I would still target French players. And yeah, Mbappe, Griezmann, Benzema, if not maybe Giroud, Pogba, Coman, even one of their defenders, Pavard, Hernandez. I'd be looking at all of them, Lloris. All of those are fantastic options, and I'd be targeting them. So France, definitely the standout for this, and a big reason why a lot of people are going to be activating their Limitless chip in Matchday 2. Portugal versus Germany. This is a game where you probably want to stay away from, especially if you're using a chip. But Ronaldo, Thomas Müller, these are the sorts of players you probably want to have from those teams if you were to have one. The defences, I'm not so sure. Especially with the news of Cancelo being obviously withdrawn from the squad because of COVID. I'm not so sure about the Portugal defence against Germany. I think both teams will score. It might not even be a bucket load of goals, but it could be a 1-1, a 2-2, or a 2-1 either way. You never know, but I don't expect a clean sheet from either side. But if I had to pick a team that's more likely to keep a clean sheet, it would be Portugal. I think they have the better defence. Germany possibly have the better attack and midfield in a way, but yeah, I think Germany defenders I would definitely avoid in this game, and that could be famous last words. Spain versus Poland, I think the same assets as I've talked about throughout the whole kind of previews for the tournament. Pau Torres, Ferran Torres, Dani Olmo is someone worth considering. Gerard Moreno, if he starts. Morata was obviously getting a lot of flack in the friendlies and stuff before the tournament started. Poland, you can still go for Lewandowski, but it's a bit too much money, especially if you have a Limitless. Why use it on Lewandowski when you can have better fixtures to target and players that can take advantage of that? So those are the kind of different options I'd be looking at on a Limitless. There's a lot of different ones you can go for, and in Matchday 3 I think even more so. And this is kind of what I'd be looking like if I was to wildcard. So I don't have any budget restrictions here, and this would only be for 1 week probably, because I'd be using my Limitless in Matchday 3. So this is just specifically to target Matchday 2. So in goal, I think I'd go for something like this: Hradecky and Lloris. Maybe I'd go a bit cheaper and save money to maybe invest in my midfield or somewhere else. But at the moment, I've got Lloris and Hradecky. In terms of the defense, I've got more money than I had before. Tyrone Mings is in there at 4.5 million. I think if he continues to start, he's a fantastic option. Pavard at 6 million. Yeah, maybe it's a bit too expensive, and obviously we all remember his goal in the World Cup in 2018, but he's not always going to do that. But he's got a bit of attacking potential. Maybe it's a bit too much money for him though, and 12 million on Pavard and Lloris. Yeah, I think it's a bit disproportionate, so there are things that maybe could be changed. But I think kind of a certainty in terms of who I'd want in my team permanently is Spinazzola and Meunier, so long as they can just keep their spots with performances like that. But I think two of them are just, they showed what they could do in Matchday 1. They've done it over the years for their club and country. So yeah, I think Spinazzola and Meunier, there's not much more that needs to be said. They're in my Limitless team as well. I've already touched on them. Dumfries is a bit of an interesting one on a wild card. Would I go for him? Maybe not. It's a bit too much money to invest in a defender who, yeah, he's got a lot of attacking potential, but the Netherlands might not even keep a clean sheet. But then again, you never know. It is Austria. I think they could score a goal, but you wouldn't really see Austria scoring 2 or more. But once again, if you're spending 5.5 million on the defender, you want a clean sheet ultimately. Then you look at my midfield, I've got Hollis in there just as a budget option. You could go for Nigo to have a bit more money. And then Wijnaldum, once again, just to cover Netherlands and not having Depay, I think Wijnaldum covers that pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that. Then you look at the rest of the midfield. Berardi, still a fantastic option at 6 million. And he's not always going to get kind of lucky assists like he did against Turkey. But I think at 6 million, he's one of the better options out there. And Malyanovsky, I think if you can stretch out a bit more to Yarmolenko, it might be worth the upgrade. But Malyanovsky can take set pieces, and you know what an assist he got from one of those set pieces. I think Malyanovsky is kind of one of the bright sparks for Ukraine, and for 7 million, a great option. So yeah, definitely someone to consider, especially with the likes of Carrasco not really doing what we anticipated in Matchday 1. Lorenzo Insigne, once again. Bit lucky maybe to get that goal just before he got substituted off, but I think Insigne is someone I'd want to keep. And if not, you could maybe go for someone else like Ferran Torres. But ultimately, you want to have one Italian attacker, I think. Whether it's Berardi, Insigne, or Immobile, who knows? But it's up to you. But I would want to have at least 2 Italy players overall in my team. And yeah, I'd be happy to keep Insigne. Then you look at the strikers. Obviously a bit cheaper than Mbappe, I'd go for Griezmann. You know, obviously we have a budget restriction here, and as you can see, this literally fills all of the 100 million that we have. Griezmann at 11 million. He's got a fantastic record for France, and I think he's got 6 goals in the Euros. So he's one of the top scorers in the history of the competition, and all of them came in one tournament, and obviously he was fantastic in 2016. Very unlucky not to win that, and for France he's always good. In 2018 World Cup, yeah, he was also a very key part of that win. Then you look at Lukaku. He's just someone that, you know, I just think he's a bit of a no-brainer. It's a bit disappointing or a bit of a shame that he's owned by half the game, but there's a reason for that. He's just so good, and he's going to keep getting points, I think, and hopefully he stays fit and can guide Belgium to glory. But yeah, Lukaku, fantastic option. We already know how good he is. And Yaremchuk, I think he showed what he could do in the first game against Netherlands, a goal and an assist. And he's someone who's gone under the radar. I haven't spoken about him myself, but obviously that performance does highlight what he can do. And yeah, I think in a game week like this, if you're wildcarding or whatever, I think targeting these teams like Sweden and Ukraine that aren't going to be particularly highly owned assets, they could be so good for you in terms of your rank, and they're just great differentials. So Yaremchuk, definitely someone to consider at 7 million. And it just shows that maybe we've been spending too much money in the attack, and we can actually use it to improve the rest of our team. And as you can see with mine, once again, you know, looking at the travesty that is my team, a lot of cheap options at 4.5 million. It's calm if they play, but guess what? Some of them didn't play. They're not completely nailed. So sometimes it's just good to invest that little bit extra, even in defense, just to have that extra security of starts and all of that. But that's my thoughts, very long thoughts on Matchday 2, talking about Matchday 1, how it went so far, and also what I'm looking to do if I'm going to use the Limitless or the Wildcard. At the moment, I'm leaning more towards using the Limitless in Matchday 2, but that could change. And if I do use my Wildcard in Matchday 2, I'll most likely be using my Limitless chip in Matchday 3. But yeah, the Limitless chip will definitely be used in Matchday 2 or 3. It's just a question of when, and I'll let you guys know. And as for the kind of substitutions, the deadline just passed, by the way, for the substitutions for Matchday 1, what I'm going to be doing is just literally just keeping everything the same and waiting until the final day, and then if Ferran Torres and Pau Torres play, then that's fine. I'll be taking off Veindel and Denier for Ronaldo and Jota. They'll be coming on, and I'll be keeping the captaincy on Lukaku. So not too much will change in terms of my Matchday 1 team. So I won't be doing any more updates for that. I pretty much covered everything in the community post early on in the week. But thank you everyone who watched this video. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and share this video around with anyone who watches or plays Euro Fantasy Football. And yeah, good luck to everyone with your teams. Obviously enjoy all the matches, of course, and yeah, just have fun most importantly, and good vibes only. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate all the support. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's still an _RCM, the same as my YouTube handle, so I'd really appreciate that as well, and I'll see you next time.